What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Herb Howard, myself, Nicholas Moreano, here for the Nick and Herb Show to break down everything that happened with the Bears this last week, including their second OTA practice. Herb, what's going on, my man?
Feeling good, man. Good, entertaining week for the Bears. Really going back to the previous week, starting with all the Caleb Williams news, and then, like you said, there was an OTA practice, the first one that the media got to attend, and got to see Coach Johnson on the grass with his full team for the first time in person. I think that was really, really cool. We're gonna certainly get into some of that and some of the things that we saw. Um, there was something else that I know was highlighted, but I forgot already. But we'll get into
Yeah,
it.
we'll get into it. I mean, there was a lot going on, and I think I think it makes sense to kind of start with Ben Johnson addressing all of the ESPN article that came out on Caleb Williams and, just kind of getting in front of that first. I think that was smart for Ben Johnson to be the first one to speak on it. I think, honestly, I would have liked to hear Caleb speak on it, but, he wasn't made available on that Wednesday practice. But I think it was good to hear from Ben Johnson to get out in front of it. And there were a bunch of questions that were pertaining to that specific topic on Caleb Williams not wanting to be a Bear before the draft, but,
Yeah.
that was the past.
I thought it was funny. Excuse me. I thought Coach Johnson was funny with how he dealt with it. He first of all, he addressed it in his opening remarks. He was like, "Look,
Hmm.
I know y'all got questions about this killer thing. I wasn't here. I don't care. I like the kid, and since I've been here, he's been all in and committed. So y'all can miss me with all that 2024. Even we're talking prior to 2024. He like, hey, I know y'all got questions, but I wasn't here and I don't care. But that doesn't stop the Chicago media from pelting him with questions about it anyway. But he dealt with it well. I thought it was pretty entertaining. Then all the other players that did speak were also asked about it. We spoke to Kevin Byard, Grady Jarrett, who wasn't here. Um, who else did we speak to? Joe
Tremaine.
Tooney, who wasn't here, and Tremaine Edmonds. And it was like they got all those questions, and I mean the answer was the same since I've known him. He's been consistent. Or I wasn't even here. I don't know why you're asking me that.
No, I mean it makes a lot of sense, and I also, Ben Johnson was asked about the comment that Caleb's dad made about this is where quarterbacks go to die, and Ben, instead of
Yeah,
like taking it one way, he's like, yeah, he embraced it. Like we
I
could write
love
this
it.
new chapter in Bears quarterback history with Caleb Williams and him there. So it was the right approach for this
Yeah,
topic that again wasn't happening when Ben Johnson was here, and it was happening even before Caleb Williams was actually a Bear, and
right,
that
right.
that tone, that mentality, it's changed. Like everything that we've seen from Caleb Williams, even like the subtle little things at the end of each press conference. What does he say? The Bears, like every single time, like he's
Yeah,
embraced being a Bear, embraced his city ever since he's been drafted here.
yeah. I think he certainly has, man. To me, it's not much of a story. Number one, there's nothing surprising about it. We heard all the rumors and rumblings about this during the pre-draft phase. And then, usually when there's that much smoke, there's at least a little fire to that thing. So I knew that this would eventually come out. I know some of Caleb's, largest supporters like, no, he never said that. You guys are lying on him. His father didn't say that. You're lying. I'm like, nobody's lying. I'm just reporting what's out there. And now, we know that he did have some of those conversations. But who can blame him? It's the Chicago Bears. It is where quarterbacks go to die. They haven't gotten that thing right ever. We can go back to Sid Luckman or whatever. We can talk about winning the Super Bowl with Jim McMahon, but we know what that 85 team was about. You bring in Jay Cutler, everybody's super, super excited. That doesn't reach the heights that people thought it may. And so then you go into this drafting process with Mitch and you go with Justin. You can go back to Rex Grossman or whomever, K McNown. Like it never has worked here. And so if I'm the top quarterback prospect, I would too be like, I don't know that I want to go there. So that trepidation was reasonable. Now he didn't have much leverage, and Ryan Poles made sure he knew it. Like we're gonna take you anyway, so you can get on board or whatever, but you're gonna get drafted here. And so once he had those meetings, he got on board, and it seems to me like he's wanted to be a Bear since that meeting took place, and he's certainly been committed to the process. I look at how he behaved and you know displayed himself last year while the Bears were going through that 10-game losing streak. He
Mhm.
never once threw guys under the bus or expressed publicly any frustration. You talk about body language on the bench and all that, but that's just a natural thing. If you're talking about competing and you putting all your effort and your health out on the line every single snap. and then it's not really working out. You're just going to the bench and you're a little frustrated. I get that. I don't trip off that part of it at all. And the rest of it is just like whatever. Do they have to lie about it? No, especially not if you put it on record with some other reporter. Like you're gonna
Hmm.
put it on record. Why would y'all come out and say no? We're not saying that. Like you knew eventually it would come out, but I think Ryan Poles was wise in terms of trying to bury it. There's no reason to tell him he's going to come here, whether you force him here or you just convince him that this is the place to be. There was no reason to then go back and throw him under the bus. Like he said, he didn't want to come to this city because this ain't the city to play that with. Because
Hmm.
Chicago will get on your head about that. So I think they did it as best they could. I don't think it's a story, and it certainly doesn't matter now.
And you know what, Herb? I mean, he wasn't wrong. Look, you had your head coach fired, you had your offensive coordinator fired, you got sacked 68 times. There was reasons to have that reservation about Chicago. But again, like you, I kind of in the same light. It's not a story anymore. Caleb Williams is the Chicago Bears quarterback, and we can move on. And I think moving on to the first thing that we noticed there at
Yeah,
at practice for that first open session to the media, the intensity, the fiery passion that Ben Johnson has when he's coaching. Like you see him getting on it when he's yelling at Cole Kmet, whether it's an alignment issue, whatever is going on there. Several times where Caleb and the offense were in the huddle, and Ben, I'm just watching him. He's like, man, it's almost like there's a ticker going on in his head. Like, you got to get this out. Boom, blows the whistle. And like, let's do this over again. So you got to see that early on in this second OTA session, first one we got to see. But
yeah.
I love that you're not letting anything get overlooked, anything that can persist into training camp later on the season. It's getting touched upon and talked about right now, which wasn't happening in the 2024 season.
Not at all. He mentioned it in his press conference after practice. He said, "Listen, they letting the details fall by the wayside." And while I was
Mhm.
watching him, he wasn't allowing that to happen. Like you say, Cole Kmet comes out, he either gets lined up in the wrong place or lined up too slow. And Ben Johnson wasn't for it. He was like, blow the whistle. He started yelling at Cole Kmet. Now, people who haven't been inside the Walter Payton Center, which is the Bears indoor practice facility, it gets loud in there. The music is playing, there are whistles, there are people yelling, it's all that. It's loud. So sometimes you do have to elevate your voice naturally just to communicate. But he was upset and he was like, y'all get back in the huddle and do it again. We're not starting that way because that's not how we're trying to finish. So right off the bat, he's like, no, do this thing the right way. And he's coming from a place where he had, the same players in the same system for several years. So he knows what he wants this thing to look like at its highest level. The Bears are obviously just starting out at a much lower level of that process, but he's like, let's set the standard for what that is right now. I'm not even going to play this game with you right now. The previous regime would talk about that. They would talk about not walking past mistakes, but ultimately, what we came to find out is they walked past a lot of mistakes, and then they regretted it. Ultimately, say, "Oh, we should have addressed this earlier. We should have corrected these things earlier." You damn right, you should have did it earlier. I don't know what you were doing skipping past these things in the first place, but Coach Johnson, his entire staff, they are not skipping past it. You look at what Eric Bieniemy is doing with that running back room. They had a really cool drill they were doing too, man. It was a pass pro drill, and they were using soccer balls. They were
Soccer
using
balls.
soccer
Yep.
balls, and they were trying to get the running backs to slide their feet laterally and then come up, sit all the way down in the chair like you need to do for proper pass protection, and scoop up the soccer ball and then throw it back to the coach. And I thought that was a really cool drill. I don't really remember having seen that before. Um, I thought that was a good drill, but you see how he's holding the running backs accountable to certain things. There was one run where DeAndre Swift pressed the hole to the left side, then he kind of stopped, cut back, and ended up going kind of up the middle of the field. For what I think would have been a big run either way. But I was trying to catch Eric Bieniemy just to see what his natural reaction was to that cutback as opposed to continuing to press it. I didn't actually see it, but that was just one of the things I'm interested in as he hones in on the details. Watching Coach Al Harris with the DBs was also very, very entertaining, specifically with Jalen Johnson. And I think you can tell they've already started to build a connection, a rapport that is going to be a healthy working relationship between the two of them. They were doing a drill, just some one-on-one drills. It was really like half speed, maybe three-quarter
Mhm.
speed. But Jalen Johnson was up and pressed, and then he's bailing out, and just the footwork and the hand placement, you could tell that Coach Harris was impressed by it. And every time he would just go over to him, just dap him up, punch him in the chest, whatever it was, like that's what we're looking for right there. And I think those two having that connection, I think there's a level of respect, a level of buy-in that you're going to get when you have the resume as a player that Coach Harris does. And I'm looking forward to them continuing to kind of develop that as they go.
You know what? Another coach that I thought stood out in spurts there was Antoine Randall L. There was a
Hmm.
rep where the Texas A&M receiver Walker, I'm blanking on his first name, but he ran. It looked like the wrong route because
Hmm.
the ball was thrown deep. Walker ran a what looked like a 10-yard stop route,
Yeah,
and then Antoine Randall L is just looking at Ben, and Ben's just looking at him like, "What is this guy doing?" Like, and then they talk to Walker about it. But it's like, again, it's establishing like when things are going wrong right here in OTAs, we're not gonna let that linger. Let's talk about it, even if they're intense conversations, which is fine. It's football, man. You're gonna have those intense conversations, and it's only to make those wrongdoings into the correct answers later on. And so that's what I really
yeah.
appreciate just in this one practice. And I know I've gotten like some comments too, like, what isn't that just coaching? It's like it is, but it's refreshing to see it. I get it. I
It's still new
understand.
around here.
Exactly. It's just refreshing to actually see it and see it consistently, not just with the head coach, but we're talking about position coaches where you're seeing this accountability taking place. And I think if you have that as the kind of central thread throughout a football team, there's no
Yeah,
reason why things are going to fall through the cracks and why you're going to have these mistakes if you're already talking about them right here, right now.
they had a big play down the right sideline, and that's cool, but it was still messed up. They had two
Hmm.
receivers in basically the same spot. In fact, both of them jumped for the ball. They were so doggone close. But those are things that aren't right. Just watching football, you're like, yeah, ain't no way both of y'all supposed to be right there. One of y'all messed up, and you correct those things, even though it turned to a big play down the sideline. It's like, no, 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 no. We're gonna address the fact that y'all were wrong. One of y'all was wrong. I don't know which one of them was wrong, but one of y'all was wrong, and so I think that's refreshing, man. And then hearing some of the players talk about it, Grady Jarrett talked about how refreshing it is. And I actually wrote about this. It's up on the bigs.us site, just about his intensity. But some of the things that Grady Jarrett had to say about it, he's like, listen, he's our leader. He sets the standard across the board for offense and for defense. And he said, listen, none of these coaches are going to come off of it in terms of what the standard is, what they expect, and holding guys accountable. None of those coaches are going to come off of it. He says, that's what you want, man. When the expectations are high, that's the type of leadership you need. And so the players seem to be buying into it. We heard all the players that were on the team last year talk about how much they wanted to be coached harder, especially Caleb Williams. They talked about the accountability in terms of, coaches, correcting guys when they see some of the mistakes made or they don't meet the standard. We're gonna find out if they really, really wanted that because they
Hmm.
certainly gonna get it whether they like it or not.
No, that's it's a really good point, and I think that's a good segue too. Like a lot of those mistakes that we were kind of seeing were offensive related, and maybe obviously there could have been defensive mistakes, but there just weren't maybe as apparent as what we were seeing from Ben Johnson, some of those offensive coaches. So
Yeah,
seeing the offense again, not even at full strength, but kind of
right.
seeing it for the first time in this offense. There were pre-snap things going on, huddling issues, the timing of things seemed off. What were just some of your first impressions, Herb, of what Caleb Williams' offense and just some of the weapons there? But it's like again, it's the second day of OTAs, first one that we're seeing. They're installing. I'm not making any big, points about what we
Yeah,
saw
sure.
that day and what's going to be, happening 2 or 3 weeks even later from now.
Yeah, I think what I saw was pretty much what I expected to see in terms of where they are in this process. Um, I referenced what you were talking about when Coach Johnson got on call in terms of where he lined up or whatever that specific thing was, and then somebody tweeted me back and was like, "Well, you know, to see him make those mistakes after installation is bad." Like, first of all, let's be clear, it's not after installation. This is during installation. This is the
This is
earliest part of installation, and uh, I can't remember who tweeted me, but they certainly understood. They wrote back like, "Yeah, my bad." After was the wrong word, but um, you got to understand the process of putting in an offense, right? Most quarterbacks will tell you it takes them 2 to 3 full seasons to master a new offense, and we're talking about 2 days. And so, in terms of being on the grass with it, so were they sharp and crispy on everything? No, they weren't. And things didn't look always sharp. They weren't always crispy. There were some plays even during 7-on-7 where Caleb wasn't able to get the ball out of his hands. You never really want to see that during 7-on-7 because there's so much space to move around and you want to at least want to be able to get the ball out. So yeah, I mean you're going to see some of that, but I think they'll continue to progress, throughout the spring and into the summer and then into the regular season. I don't think we'll see, this offense fully clicking on all cylinders until, week 8, week 10, something like that. And even going into the 2026 season, you'll still see them improving as an offense because that's just what it takes. And it'll take that for Coach Johnson to even get comfortable, going all the way into his bag because you got to do what the players are comfortable with at this point. And so they'll figure out those things and they'll start to tailor their game plans around those things. But you'll still see some mistakes. What you don't want to see is the same mistakes repeated over and over again by the same players. Especially you don't want pre-snap penalties. You don't want lack of communication, lack of discipline. Those types of things are the things that you don't want. And those are the things I think these coaches are talking about when they're addressing some of the mistakes they're seeing. Get lined up in the right spot. Now, once the play snaps, if we don't, line up the right way or we don't space the right way and everything doesn't come quite together, some of that is to be expected throughout the course of installation and on into the summer. But, those pre-snap things are things you can't really have. And so those are things you take care of, in the classroom as much as you do on the field.
Shoot, if you're going to make a mistake, make it at full speed, right?
Yep,
After the
let's
play
go.
is snapped and you can go and maybe make a play. Caleb has this ability to create things out of nothing if the play breaks down. So if you're going to make a mistake, make it after the snap, after you're lined up properly. Also, too, we've noticed that Caleb Williams now has that left foot forward. So, I mean, that
Yep.
changes up some of the footwork. He was used to having the right foot forward in last season, even in college back at his USC days. So it is some a little bit of an adjustment, but it sounds like it was something that Caleb was already looking forward to doing. And it's something that Ben Johnson, after I asked him the question, was like, this is something I strongly believe in. And that's just going to help with the timing of things, a quick game, things where you just need the timing of routes to match up with where the footwork is for the quarterback. So it's going to be a progress, man. It's not going to be polished or cleaned up. And that should be expected. There was one rep too, Herb, where, Rome is on the outside closest to where the viewing session for us
Mhm.
is at. And he's looking over inside, just throwing his hands up, like not knowing what to do. He still ended up getting the ball on whoever the corner was on that side. So it's like we were just saying, if you're going to make a mistake, not know exactly what you do, just do it at full speed. Run your route as best as you can, knowing what that play may be, and you
Mhm.
still end up getting the football. So it's like you can still have success even when things are not exactly how Ben Johnson wants it. But just seeing how Ben Johnson's coaching, he's going to want it damn near perfect every single time.
They got that type of talent on this team where they can be right
Yeah.
even when they're wrong, right? If they're doing it full speed, if they're displaying their full athleticism, their full skill set, Rome can still get open on most people in this league. And so, that's going to happen. Imagine when they're all on the same page, or imagine when the steps are proper in terms of, well, this is a
Mhm.
6-step comeback. This is, 12 and in, whatever it is. When they're that sharp on all the details, this thing should really, really, really get to flowing. But I think, like right now, you're going to see some of that. I thought it was really cool that you picked up on the front, on the left foot being forward and asking Coach Johnson about that in the press conference because you got to get an answer for, one, how much he likes it, and two, what that's looking like for Caleb right now. I personally have never really understood right foot up in the gun
Yeah.
for a right-handed quarterback. To me, it never felt comfortable, and it was easier for me to put my left foot forward, take the snap, and then my right foot is already,
Mhm.
ready to go back for the drop, whatever 3, 3, 5, 7, whatever it is. It's like to have the other foot up, just seems like one extra thing to do, and
Yeah.
it throws off your timing in terms of getting the ball to the receiver at the right time. And so that makes a ton of sense to me. I also like they're going to be under center a lot more, and so those are things that Caleb is going to have to adjust to, and it's going to feel more and more comfortable and natural for him as they go through the process.
Absolutely. And look, for what they were looking at the offensive line, starting a line, like right now, they also had Karan Magaji as that starting left tackle
They
with
did, yeah,
everybody is pegged in as it should be with Joe Tooney,
yeah,
Dahlman,
yeah.
Jackson, and then right there. And look, there were still times where some of those plays that we were seeing,
There were some
Montez
sacks.
Sweat. Yeah, Montez Sweat was back there. Grady Jarrett also blew up a play in the backfield quick on that right
Yeah,
side. So
yeah.
it's a work in progress for the offensive line too, as the same thing for the receiver, everybody. So we shouldn't be expecting polished football at this point. Maybe in a couple of weeks, couple of months, you'll see it become better. But I'm still just not
Yeah.
expecting a finished product anytime soon.
No, and the defense, they're gonna win. They're gonna be
Yeah.
ahead, early in the process. Just is what it is. but they're also, as far as the D line, they have a bit of an advantage when there aren't pads on. The offensive line can't do what they would normally do with pads on. But I think it's going to be great for whomever gets to start the at left tackle early on in training camp, because you talk about um, Trapillo and Amagaji, like
Yeah.
both of those dudes have a lot to learn, and they're going to get the chance to go up against Montez Sweat on a daily basis, at least while Braxton is healing up. That's going to be good for them, man. You're going to find out. Like if you think Trapillo can come in here and start day one for you, well, we're gonna find out, because
Hmm.
he's going to have Montez Sweat lined up over him often enough, and if he can deal with that, then you feel pretty good about where he is in his projection, his trajectory in terms of where he can go. So you start to see some of those things early. Looking at the other side of the ball too, the defense was really, really cool, man. I think seeing those corners up and press was just refreshing
Hmm.
to me, man. I like bump and run coverage, and Jalen Johnson has been wanting to do it for a while. You can just kind of see the excitement that he had as he went through practice. And each time he got to go up there and get right in front of that receiver and squat down in position and get his hands on him early, then he can turn and run. I think that's where he feels most comfortable. I think that's where he wants to play. And having a coach like Coach Allen who wants to do those same things just opens up the world to the defense, man. Kyler Gordon was not
Hmm.
at practice. Um, he wasn't at practice. There were some other guys that were just some notable guys that jumped out that weren't there. Him, Billings, whom I think may have just had a child. So if that's true, congratulations to him and his family. Hopefully, mom and baby are healthy. But Billings, Kyler, Luther Burden the third
Yep.
wasn't there. Those are just some of the guys that were kind of notable. There were others, but those were the guys that
Hmm.
kind of jumped out to me as most notably absent from practice. And so, we'll see what that is. I'm sure it wasn't anything the coaches didn't know about. I think I saw Kyler like at the Cannes Film Festival, but Kyler's turning into that type of
Hmm.
star
Yeah.
for the fashion world and the film world and just the art world. Kyler is into all that. So, no big deal. But I was saying that to say, once Kyler is back, the things you're going to be able to do with him are just so intriguing. And we've talked about this before, because Coach Allen mentioned the fact that Kyler could even drop back to safety on some of these plays.
Yeah.
Not just the idea, that whole idea just blows my mind, because I think it's so cool what they can do and the tricks they can play on a quarterback. You got JJ McCarthy coming into your building, making his first NFL start on Monday Night Football in his hometown. It's going to be a lot of pressure on him. If you can trick him, you can probably pick him off a couple of times, and that's why I think the Bears will win that game. But those types of things they can do, because they got corners that want to come up and press. Tyreek wants to do the same thing, right? Now,
Hmm.
once you do that, you have to have the pass rush to marry it, right? Because you can't have
Exactly.
guys coming up and press and then trying to bail out and run and cover for 6 seconds. That will not work, especially for Tyreek. He got beat pretty bad on a drag. I can't think of who it was. It may have been
Rome.
DJ or Rome. Yeah, it was a
Rome got
Rome
him. Yep.
coming all the way across the field. That's just not a good matchup for Tyreek. We talked about that before in terms of the type of receivers he's better off covering and the type of routes he's better off covering. Once you get him in man coverage, and you're talking about him dragging all the way across the field trying to chase that guy 50 yards across, not ideal for him. But if he can come up, get his hands on him, kind of redirect the route, then he can hold up for those 3 to 4 seconds. But that means you got to have a sufficient pass rush to marry with it. But I'm excited about what that looks like. I really, really am.
Yeah, no, it should be exciting. And just really quickly, when you're thinking about that, like Tyreek is over there on Rome, meaning that Jalen's probably on the opposite side with DJ. But that's the complications that this offense is going to create for
Yeah.
defenses. Like even if you do have an elite corner who may be shadowing, DJ, dude, like there is Rome. Luther Burden's going to be a part of this. We didn't see Colston Loveland out there yet. Like there are just a lot of weapons that you're going to have to deal with as an opposing defense when dealing with a Ben Johnson offense that does have just a bunch of weapons to work with. Really quickly, Herb, I think before we kind of get into more of these practice takeaways and just kind of breaking down also, now the Bears are having two joint practices with the Dolphins and Bills, which I cannot
Interesting.
wait for.
Yeah.
Just that it turns the level of intensity way up.
Want to see that
Let
defense with Josh Allen?
Yes, exactly, exactly. What is Tua gonna do? We'll see, we'll see. But before we get to some of those just more takeaways, let's really quickly take a quick ad break, and we're gonna start here with our friends at Windy City Sports Cards. Look, they specialize in buying and selling all things related to Chicago sports. Whether you're a diehard fan of the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, or Blackhawks, everybody, they've got you covered With an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles, in addition to those Chicago-focused items, they also offer a vast collection of sports trading cards and memorabilia from your favorite teams and players. Visit their online store to find exactly what you're looking for to complete your collection or to discover a new favorite. Check them out at 312-WindyCitySportsCards.com. That's 312-WindyCitySportsCards.com. And Herb, I actually got something for you, buddy.
I know they told me. They're like,
Next time.
we're gonna give yours to Nick. So when you get them, just grab it. I'm like, that's what's up.
I mean, they hooked you up with, it looks just like a straight up,
It
just
does.
B, but it's
it's an 18 as well.
As well. So you got that going for you. And then we also, I had to get my items in here too. Actually, I'm wearing got the no block,
no rock.
And then wait, is this the exact same? We're doing like an unveiling unboxing here live.
Let's go
on the podcast here. But Herb, next time we're at Halas Hall, my friend, you'll get all your Windy City Sports Cards and material there. So rock your no block, no rock. And then we have another one. I think this is the Jim McMahon one. Yes, sir. Boom.
Let's go.
So appreciate Windy City Sports Cards.
Definitely appreciate it. Can't wait to rock those throughout the summer, man. We go through so much, like just merch and t-shirts and hoodies, well, not hoodies, but caps or whatever throughout training camp. So can't wait to pat those in the rotation. Thanks so much to Windy City Sports. Appreciate that.
Yep, appreciate them. And then really quickly, got to shout out my guys here at Protein 2.0. It's something that I literally take every single time after a workout, or honestly when I'm on the road. You get your 20 grams of protein, 350 milligrams of electrolytes. Tastes delicious. Orange mango right here. If you're not into any of the whey proteins, I completely understand. You want something different. Protein 2.0 is going to be for you. And they have this simple goal, you guys. Make it easier to get the protein and hydration your body needs without all of the unnecessary junk. I think we can all appreciate that. So you can check out Protein 2.0. It's available at Target and Amazon. So next time you're looking for a protein shake, you're at Target. Everyone shops at Target at some point. Pick up Protein 2.0. It's going to be a delicious alternative to your protein drinks there. All right, this is the go ahead.
Definitely pick it up somewhere. We got beef with Target right now, but that's another topic.
True. Amazon. You can go to Amazon.
There we go.
Online.
I want to go back to something you said right before the break, and it was about having these matchup problems that the offense can create. Luther Burden, Coastal Leveling, not even inserted yet. Like that's going to add another dimension when you get both of those guys out there. What is that going to look like, man? I think that's really, really exciting. I did get some questions about Luther Burden because Coach said he's dealing with some soft tissue things. And listen, I'm not concerned about that right now. I would rather them be very, very cautious with it. He's going to be one of your more explosive players. That's his game. And so if you don't want him dealing with a hamstring, a calf, a quad. You don't want him dealing with that, all summer or into the season. However long it takes to get it completely out of there, go ahead and get it completely out of there right now. As long as he's in the classroom, in the playbook, understanding what's going on, that's fine. The mental reps are fine for him right now. You want him to be healthy when training camp is here, going on into the preseason, so you can see that explosiveness on full display. You don't want that to be a thing you drag into the preseason or anything like that, because any given play, you can go ahead and really, pop something or pull something, and then he's out 6 to 8 weeks in the season. You don't want that. So, if it's this early in the process, be as cautious as you have to be with a player like Luther Burden III.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have an issue with him, taking that time he needs to get healthy. And like they have other wide receivers too. Like we saw Devin Duvernay out there. We saw Olamide Zaccheaus out there getting those reps in the slot and moving around. So
you got guys.
You got guys. So if you're Luther Burden, take your time. You get the medical staff, get him right, because he is going to be an explosive weapon for you. And same thing with Colston Levin. Like you have Cole Kmet and you also have Durham Smythe, who they signed. So they're both implemented at times throughout the first team offense while they're kind of doing their thing in 7-on-7s and, team drills. But those two guys are really important to you. Your first two picks in this last draft class, like you need them to just be fully healthy. And just, this is going to be, I think, a complex offense for everybody. So for rookies, like it's all right not to actually be on the practice field, as long as you're getting everything you need with those mental reps in the classroom. And then visually seeing it from the other guys, that is still equally, I think, a beneficial rep for you as you're kind of going through these developmental stages in their NFL careers. Herb, when we're kind of talking about too, we were kind of mentioning it, but just like practice in general, did anything feel different? I mean, we mentioned the Eric Bieniemy running back drill, which I thought was interesting. I don't remember ever seeing soccer balls on the football field,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
was a nice little touch. But anything else in terms of practice that maybe stood out to you as we're kind of thinking about, what we saw there inside the Walter Payton Center?
It took me a while to find Coach Johnson. Like
Yeah.
during prayer, I couldn't find him. Like I don't know. Like is he not out there? Is he back in the building somewhere? Is he dealing with something else? I couldn't find him, and I also couldn't figure out like is this just because he's moving around so much and trying to get an eye on every position group? Because I would see him down with the O line, and I see him, pick his head into the D line drills and DB. Like, so it's like, where is he? And I also just realized I don't know his mannerisms yet. Like
Mhm.
after a while, it's very, very easy to spot certain coaches because you're just used to their mannerisms and how they walk around and what they tend to wear to practice, that kind of stuff. But I don't know him yet. Like, you know what I mean? So it wasn't that easy for me to find him. But other than that, man, I don't want to do too much. Like, oh, it's this football. It's world class athletes on the grass in shorts and t-shirts. It looks like it tends to look. It was just a couple of those drills. I was like, well, that's innovative. That's something I haven't seen before. And just the kind of the energy and the presence of those coaches stylistically,
Mhm.
in comparison to the previous regime. Now, like we know, um, Overstreet. Street was like that, right? The
Yeah.
Bears nickel corner for the previous regime. He always brought that kind of energy. He always brought that type of intensity, to the practice field. He was usually the loudest person on the practice field. But outside of him, well, they got Chad Morton last year
Sure,
too, and
Martin.
he
Yep.
he, he also coached with that type of energy. He would finish every single run 80 yards down the field with the running backs. And so those two guys brought that kind of juice. But you kind of see this kind of across the board now. I also thought it was pretty interesting to see how engaged coach. See, that's what I thought. How engaged Ryan Poles was at
Yeah.
practice. He was down on the field. He's talking to the coaches. He's talking to some of the players. He's just kind of keeping a really, really close eye on what was going on. I think he's usually out there for practice, but to me, he just seemed engaged differently in terms of just talking with the coaches and catching some players on some side moments. So those are a couple things that stuck out, but nothing super earth shattering. I don't want to overhype what was happening out there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Just maybe some personnel things that I was like noting as I was kind of
Hmm.
watching practice. When you were going with that base defense, you did see Noah Sewell
Noah
out
Sewell's
there,
out there.
number 44, kind of filling
He got a sack
that.
too,
Yeah, he
or
got
he
a
would have
sack.
had a
So
sack. He blitzed on the play, and he
mhm.
certainly would have got a sack.
Yeah, so I mean, I think they're still trying to figure that one out though, because obviously, like that's a position that it's honestly not going to be out there all too much because you're in nickel so much, but you
I
just need to
think
have
Kyler's going to play
somebody
like 80%,
every
75% of the
yeah,
snaps.
right. I mean, you want to have him out on the football. That's why they're thinking about, hey, you can play safety too. Like, you want to keep number 6 on the defense more times than not. So, but they still just need to find someone that they can rely on. I know
Yeah.
Ruben Hippolyte would have lit up Kyle Monangai on
Hmm.
just a little flare route over to the left side closest to
Yeah.
us. It's that speed. We know he has that speed at the linebacker position. So you're kind of seeing that. I have Darius Morgan in the chat here. Daniel Hardy
Daniel
had
Hardy.
kind of played that little hybrid, like at times he was at the end, but then he's kind of dropping back to that linebacker spot. He's kind of he has that body type, to be completely honest. So it
He
wasn't
does.
surprising to hear him like be in the mix of that role there.
Very athletic, very strong. He's been a four-phase special teams player for you. Um, he can get down the field.
Yeah.
He's displayed that athleticism. And so while you're trying to figure it out, hey, include every option possible, especially this early in the process. Include every option that's possible for you at that spot. But again, listen, they extended Kyler Gordon, well-earned contract extension. They want him on the field. He's going to be on the field. I want to say that Sanborn was on the field like 35% of the time. I think that drops even lower for the Sam backer going into this year, or maybe it's 25%
Yeah.
because you want to keep Kyler Gordon on the field. Listen, Kyler's a willing tackler. You aren't losing a ton of physicality by having Kyler on the field, even in the run game. He's willing to come up, stick his nose in there, and he's a very good tackler. So I'm not worried about that. I think they can do so many different things, with Kyler on the field. And you see some of those DNs kind of dropping back, and they got a couple of athletic ones that can do it. When you talk about Austin Booker or Montez, or even guys like Dom Rob, if he's going to be around, like so, you can do a lot of different things. I'm not super worried about what they do. at Sam, but you do want to find out who the candidates are and start to get that thing, at least rolling a little bit to figuring out who's going to be there.
Yeah, just having someone that you can rely on. I think,
Mm-hmm.
they know the
Mm-hmm.
assignment, know the play, be in your spot when you need to be, and don't be a hindrance to the defense when you're out there. Obviously
Agreed.
be part of the 11. One last thing, like I was kind of trying to make note of like the second quarterback, the second team. There were times
Yeah.
where I think initially, maybe even before the team drills, it was Case Keenum that went, then obviously Tyson Bagent. They kind of flip flopped a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is the time or place to say, oh, who's QB2, but you did see both of those guys getting reps there with whoever that second team offense and even third team as well. I mean, Austin Reed maybe got one series the entire practice, but you did see a little bit of Case Keenum, Tyson Bagent both in there, making some throws throughout the practice, but we'll see as it kind of goes on what that looks
Yeah.
like. But I know when they signed Case Keenum, like that's a guy that has a lot of veteran experience. Does that mean he gets the quarterback two job? I still think it's going to be Bagent, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see how it kind of plays out there.
Yeah,
All right,
I
Herb.
certainly
Yeah,
think it's going to be Bayesian, as well, just as they kind of
yeah.
go through that process of figuring out, who's going to be number two quarterback. I think that Case Keenum brings an immense value to that room. Just his veteran presence. He's seen so much football. He's played for so many different coaches in so many different systems. I think he's going to be a great sounding board for Caleb. But I still think that Bayesian will be number two. Bayesian just works hard at it. I saw him make a throw yesterday, little crossing route going to his left, and he threw it and they completed it. But it was one of those situations where he put the ball in a spot where the receiver kind of had to stop for it as opposed to putting it out in front of him. He could have kept running, and you could just see
Mhm.
the frustration on Tyson. Like, damn, I missed that one. Like, I got to put that out in front of him so he can keep going. He's just that type of competitor, and I don't see him losing that spot really to anybody. I mean, he came and took that job from PJ Walker a couple years ago.
Mhm.
Like, they had gave PJ Walker a little money to come in and be the backup, and he was like, I don't give a damn. I am. I came from wherever little school he came from,
Yeah,
and I came to take this job. So I just like his demeanor, his competitive spirit.
he's also a really good teammate, Herb. I don't know why I made a note of this as I was just kind of writing stuff down, but they were going from one drill to the other, and he's running down there. He's one of the guys first ones down
Yep.
there, but he dabs up like everybody that he's passing, and then obviously Caleb's about to get the reps going into the 7-on-7 period, but he makes sure like here's a little fist bump. But he did that to everybody. That's just how Tyson Bagent's wired. That's
Yep.
he's competitive, but he's going to be supportive of the guys in front of him, and you already know that if he thinks he could be the starter too. So
For
you
sure
got
he
to have that
does.
mindset. You got to have that mindset though if you're in the NFL. So I do
Absolutely.
appreciate that about Tyson Bagent. Really quickly, Herb, let's talk about what I mean. Are there anything in the press conferences that we need to highlight here? I got to hear a little bit. I was there for Ben Johnson. I had to leave early, and then I got to listen to Joe Tooney. I don't know about you, but with Joe Tooney, he
Hmm.
definitely seems like somebody. Hopefully, he's a guy better in the locker room when you talk to him, as opposed to maybe at the podium. Because when I was listening to the press conference, like, like it almost came off like maybe like that's just not his setting, but maybe
Yeah.
it's just different when he's in his own domain in the locker room, and maybe it's more intimate setting.
Yeah. And I said that on
Yeah,
purpose
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's just his thing, man. He starts off every answer with yeah. Um, I think he's probably a guy that just doesn't really feel super comfortable in that environment, or not
yeah.
uncomfortable. It's just not really his thing. I had that conversation um, somebody on another show talking about him as a leader. I was with Cassie Carlson from Fox. We did a piece after practice, and I just don't think that he has to be that kind of leader. I don't think he's a, rah rah, big speech leader. I think he's a lead by example kind of guy. And I
For
think
sure.
when you have a guy with his resume with 4 Super Bowls and multiple All Pros, like you just want to watch him work and you do what he does because clearly it works. So I think he's going to be more of that type of guy or more of a one-on-one leader where he pulls the guys to the side and leads them along that way. I don't think he's that kind of rah rah guy. I don't think he's going to be that way in the media. I think to your point, if you can get him, alone in the locker room and talk to him, I think he'll be a good person to talk to gain some real football insight to what they're doing out there. But in that, multiple cameras and lights media session, I don't think he's ever going to be super entertaining or a great soundbite.
No, yeah. I mean, that's definitely the takeaway I had. It was I don't know if it's refreshing or I think it's if you're a Bears fan, you want to hear this when asked
Hmm.
I think early on, like, why do you want to resign here? He's like, again, he mentioned what he was seeing from the players, the coaching stat, like it was similar to what he had been around. So I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's good right now, but what's also going to be similar is if you start winning
17.
football games, that's what's going to be the most similar thing here. You can do everything right at this point, which is a good start, but I
Yeah.
think you want to see those end results with W's, and then you're going to also see what the similarities could be with this Bears team to, previous teams that have gone on to win Super Bowls. But he needs to start here, and I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, he don't know nothing about losing. He don't know nothing about no losing, man. He went from the Patriots to the Chiefs. He went from Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes. He don't know nothing about losing. But $17.5 million helps too per
Yeah.
year.
Oh yeah, no doubt. That will definitely help any person who had any reservations about a place. Oh, okay, I'll take the 17.5 million there. That always helps. I wonder if I know he was asked to Joe Tooney about if Caleb had asked around about Tom Brady, like how
Mm,
he had done things. I wonder if that conversation will end up, or even Patrick Mahomes at some point. But we'll have to see, maybe we'll never get that answer. But with Caleb, as good as he wants to be, I'm sure that at some point, like, yeah, hey, how did he go about doing things after a loss or whatever it may be? But Joe Tooney's
absolutely.
going to be he's just going to be a good person to have, not only for the quarterback, Ben Johnson, the offensive line, whoever's playing left tackle. He's just going to be a nice resource to have. And, it was good that
Yeah.
they got that deal done.
Been there, done that. I think bringing in guys like that matters. I think, Grady Jarrett was similar. I think some of the things he said in this press conference stood out about some of the younger guys behind him. He talked about Javon Dexter developing as a leader, and he was the one who actually put together the workout that we saw the D-line doing. They were down in Miami when Montez came and Austin Booker came. Grady Jarrett went down there with Javon Dexter, but he put that together. He also was talking about Shamar Turner and, his development and how he's going to have to come into his own. And as much as he wants to be there for Shamar, he wants Shamar to be there for him too. He's like, man, we in this thing together. And so I think just bringing in those types of guys is going to be really, really, helpful for ultimately what the Bears want to do as they continue to develop in this process. It's still early on for this team just kind of coming together. But I think the more things they can do off the field, and that was something that Tremaine referenced a lot during his press conference, was the things that they can do off the field, going to dinner, being around each other right now during this process is going to pay dividends for them as they go through the process on into season, because Tremaine was just saying, like, you're gonna lay it out there on the line for guys that you know, guys that you have relationships with, guys that you've been out to dinners with, you've been to their house, they've been to your houses. It seems like something that's maybe cliche or maybe not necessary, but it is necessary. If how you feel about the guy next to you, maybe it shouldn't impact how hard you're going to play or whether or not you're going to go full speed to kind of take on this block to free him up. But it does matter, and I think they're starting to lay the foundation for those things.
Herb, I agree with everything you just said as I timed out there, but no, Grady Jarrett, even I got to listen to a couple of minutes for him before jumping on here. You have him and like Shamar Turner, and
Yeah.
like there's a lot of energy within that defensive line room. And
Dude,
just
Shamar
excitement.
Turner's got tree trunks for legs, bro. I was
Yes.
watching him down at practice, especially when I went down on the field level, and
Hmm.
his legs like this big, like he was next to Dex. And I think Shamar's legs are bigger than his. And I was like, that's crazy. And so you talk about, he's not the tallest guy. He's going to play with leverage. He wants to be able to anchor. Having that strong of a foundation is what allows him to explode up through those bigger offensive linemen. I think you're going to see that. That guy's going to be able to probably take on some double teams, eat up some blockers. Like just looking, I was like, damn, this dude is like solid. You know what I mean? There was just something
Yeah.
that jumped out to me when they were going through like stretching drills and just doing like high knees, and I was like, you see his legs? That's crazy.
It's almost kind of like a from our vantage point, like a Saquon Barkley type of like quad.
Yeah,
Like,
man.
what the hell,
It's
dude? Like that's
insane
you don't skip leg day, and we can tell. But he also,
at
I had
all.
noted in my notes here, like, dude just shot into the backfield, and whoever was the running back, nah, you're not going anywhere. So I got a chance to just talk to his position coach, who's actually also
Hmm.
Javon Dexter's position coach.
Yeah.
And the thing that he brought up was like he has never seen anybody with a get off like Shamar's. And the only other person was the kid from New York, Leonard Williams, who's now with
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Seattle. So
Yeah.
he's like, those are two fastest guys that I've ever seen get off the line of scrimmage. And we haven't really seen. I think, all that much of that in college in terms of the sack productions, but he's like, that's the next thing I'm looking forward to seeing. So if you can get that aspect of a player in the second round who has that ability to penetrate, and then you do have Grady Jerry, you do have Javon Dexter, you do have Montez, Dio Ding, like what you were
Big
saying
Bill.
earlier, Herb, about like for these corners to play press man, they need to have that rush with it. If these guys
Hmm.
can provide that pass rush, now you have, I think, a complete Dennis Allen defense where you can create some serious problems for offenses, and that's going to all
Yeah.
depend on if everybody can do their job to the best of their ability. It's going to start that D line creating pressure, but it should be fun, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what the combinations will look like too. Like it's like they have some guys, and Grady, like when you see Grady Jarrett stand next to like a Javon Dexter and Montez
Yeah.
Sweat,
Yeah.
it's there's a difference there.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference, but we know what Grady Jarrett's about, so it should be fun to see how those combinations come to play here.
Now, Dex makes it always interesting standing next to those defensive tackles because the Bears have shorter defensive tackles. You talk about Billings, Grady,
Mm-hmm.
and now Shamar. They're all like 6 feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's 6'6". It's like that's interesting. And then Montez, like you said, he's 6'6". But I can't wait for the pass to get on, man. I know it's still a little bit of a ways away, but I can't wait to see the pass get on. We talked all spring about the interior of that Bears offensive line and how it's improved, and now we're talking about the interior of the defensive line, those defensive tackles. I want to see those guys get after it, man. I want to see who's winning those Grady Jerry, Joe Tooney matchups. I want to see
Mm-hmm.
what that looks like. I want to see Jonah Jackson anchoring down against Big Bill. Like, what does that look like? I can't wait to see, some of those matchups that happen on the interior of that line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And I'm also looking forward to seeing that press coverage, man. I want to see Jalen
Yep.
Johnson put his hands on DJ Moore's chest plate and what that looks like. I want to see, Roma Dunze getting off the press. I want to see those types of things, man. Those are some of the things I'm most looking forward to. That matchup on the interior of both sides of the ball, and then the matchup on the exterior with those cornerbacks being up in press coverage on Rome, on DJ, on Luther Burton. How do you kind of free him up if
Yeah.
he's going to be in the slot? What does that look like for Cole? For Colston Loveland getting off of the ball when he comes back. I know he's going to be slow coming back with his shoulder. You don't want to,
Mm-hmm.
beat him up too bad, but eventually you got to get him ready for the season. I want to see what that looks like for those guys. And I think it should be a pretty physical camp just because you're implementing a new system on offense and a new system on defense. A defense that likes to be exotic, show you different things, and utilize, the skill sets on the outside and the physicality on the inside. I'm looking forward to what that looks like and how they move those backers around. You talk about Coach Allen talking
Mm-hmm.
about, utilizing the versatility of those linebackers. So it's not just always going to be Tremaine in the middle, TJ on the weak side. They're going to flip that thing sometimes because I think I asked Tremaine this in his press conference. Like, I think his athleticism will allow him to do more things, and we've been talking about wanting him to have more, big impact plays than he's
Yep.
had. Just kind of being in that middle guy in the cover two, and I know he's got a great skill set for that cover two. It looks like Urlacher and it looks like Darius Leonard or whatever, but his athleticism should also allow him to do a lot of other things that Coach Allen wants him to do in this particular defense, and it actually may give him more opportunities to make those game-changing plays.
Yeah, well, we'll just have to wait and see how all of that kind of plays out here as we kind of go through the OTAs. Next time we'll be there at Halas Hall
Yeah,
next Wednesday, May 28th. So we'll see how maybe we'll see less pre-snap penalties, whatever it may be. But
yep,
we're looking forward to seeing how this offense continues to develop, what we see defensively with all the chess pieces that they have and how you can be utilized on any given play. Should be a really fun time to see how this football team in general just continues to develop
it's that
in the
constant
early
growth and
stages.
development, man.
Yeah, constant growth. I mean, that's what this time is about. And oh my goodness, right as we're
Crystal,
amazing. Oh, here we go.
it's a
How is
good
Declan
question.
Doyle presence in practice? We don't hear much about our new OC. Keep up the great work, guys. Love the early morning Friday pod. So I was actually making note of that early on. There wasn't any crazy standout takeaways because after Caleb would get yelled at Ben Johnson, he would kind of go over, stand next to Declan. And
Yep,
Declan, there wasn't even too much of a conversation between them because it looks like with Declan, he's just kind of surveying everything. And I feel like that's exactly his role to just
yep,
literally watch all aspects of the offense, maybe jot down some notes, whatever it may be. But you didn't hear him. Like I don't see Declan Doyle as one of those rah
no,
loud type of coach. That's not his personality. But
no.
he was there when Caleb wasn't in. Another quarterback was in. Like Caleb was standing next to Declan there. So that's what I kind of noticed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, the development of his role on the staff and within the team. I remember asking him about that the last time he was available, and he was like, "No, I just, I want to be making sure that the practice is efficient. I want to make sure that I'm ready to step in when Coach Johnson has other things he needs to, attend to." And so I think that's his role. And just like you said, just be that overseer, make sure your eyes are on everything, make sure we're being efficient. And like you said, you won't really hear him that much. At least I don't expect to hear him that much out on the field anyway. And like you said, it's not his personality, but I think it's also not really his role right now. I got to be honest with you, Crystal. I didn't really see him. I wasn't looking for him. I know he
Mhm.
was out there. I did see him, but I wasn't looking for him. I was so interested in where Coach Johnson
Yeah.
was, and took me a minute to find him. But I was very, very fascinated to see um, Coach Randall, Coach Harris, Coach Bieniemy, Coach Allen. Those were the coaches that I was most focused on, because at this point in the process, to be honest with you, I'm really more interested in what the coaches are doing than what the players are doing. These, like I said earlier, these are world class athletes in shorts and t-shirts. They are
Mhm.
going to look decent running around the field. I want to see how the coaches are coaching them up on these mistakes and getting them lined up in the right places. So I was looking at some of those other coaches. I didn't really pay much attention to Declan Doyle, but that is something I'm very, very interested to see going forward. That's a great question, Crystal. Thank you for the super chats.
Yeah, and we speaking of super chats, we got another one from Daniel here. Great content, guys. Do the veterans seem to be trying? They didn't try for Eberflus practices. They just took a lot of days off. I mean,
Well,
I don't know. Herb, from what we could see, it looks like they're trying. They're there, right? So I mean, that's also a good sign as well. But I didn't after Wednesday's practice. One of my takeaways was not like, oh, I don't know if there's much effort being out there with the intensity of the coaches. I feel like
yeah.
they needed to match that in some way. So I didn't have that type of feeling after Wednesday's practice.
Yeah, no, I think they're certainly trying, but if I'm being honest with you, I also I didn't believe that about the
True.
previous regime. I didn't think the players didn't try. The practices where I saw the players were being professional, they were doing what they want to do, what they needed to do. Just, some of the accountability things weren't there when they made mistakes, but I don't think there was a lack of effort. Just my personal opinion.
Hmm.
But I definitely think they're trying right now. One thing I remember that jumps out to my head was there was a deep ball, went down the field, was incomplete. And as Jalen's coming back, he's kind of doing this, Jalen thing. He's got his swag and he's walking. And it was 7-on-7, and most of the other guys had gotten back, but he was a deep guy. And he starts to walk, and he kind of looks up, sees everybody together, and he kind of sprints over to the huddle because Coach Allen is also in the huddle. So he's like,
Mm.
"Let me get my ass over there." So just those types of small things that kind of stick out to you as you watch practice. And I think the effort, the buy-in, these guys want to be good. They want to be successful. They tasted that 10-game losing streak. They don't want anything like that again. So the effort is there for sure. Good question.
Speaking of effort, Squeegee, how would Ben Johnson have dealt with Claypool and Nate Davis? That would yeah, that would not have, I don't think, gone over well, to be
Yeah.
completely, yeah, with both of
No.
them. They're both different reasons for why they
Sure.
kind of didn't have
Sure.
the practices, but yeah, definitely wouldn't have gone over well. I
Get him
think
out of
though,
here.
yeah, get them out of here. Yeah, for sure. I think this is a good time as we're kind of wrapping
Yeah.
things up. If for all the people in the chat, what are you looking forward to seeing from the next OTA practice next Wednesday? What are some of the things that maybe Herb and I should keep our eyes out for? Drop it in the comments or just drop how you're
Hit us
you're
on
feeling about
Twitter.
this Bears team. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
On Twitter, you have here multiple different ways that you can reach us to see what you're curious about because we're your eyes and ears there at Halas Hall, and we just want to help you guys get a better understanding of what's going on while the Bears are going through their OTAs at this point. But Herb, any final comments before we kind of close this one out? I'm glad we were able to get this in on this Friday morning and tell people what they need to hear.
Yeah, man. I saw a lot of comments talking about the early start and being up early,
Mm-hmm.
rises 8 a.m. If y'all like it, we like it, man. Let's get up early. Let's talk about the week that has been for the Bears. Let's do it early on a Friday, man. Before y'all get out into we're going into the summertime. Y'all gonna want to get outside on Friday afternoons and evenings. So
Mm-hmm.
let's get up early, get our Bears news in, recap the week together, get our day started, man. So if y'all cool with the early start, we will be cool with it too. Make sure y'all tell a friend to tell a friend, at least one Bears fan that to get up early with us on Friday mornings, man. We'll check in with y'all around 8 o'clock and put a bow on what the week has been. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. Thank y'all so much for all the comments that came through. Thank you extremely for the super chats. We greatly appreciate those, man. But
Mm-hmm.
most importantly, we appreciate y'all being here. So looking forward to it, man. The Bears are where I think they should be right now. Looking forward to that continued growth and development as we go through the summer and into the preseason.
Yeah, great job there, Herb. Before everyone heads out, give this video a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the It's the Bigs YouTube channel. We'll be back with you next Friday morning. But until then, adios, Bears fans.